For 100 years, the people of Earth had lived under the shadow of the Zentari Dominion, an ancient and powerful empire that ruled much of the known galaxy with its unmatched technology and strange psychic control. When the Zentari first made contact with Earth, they did not come with peace or war, but something more dangerous: a treaty. To the galaxy, it looked like an invitation, a welcome into the community of advanced civilizations, but to humanity, it was a cage. The Treaty of Subservience, signed by desperate world leaders after a short but terrifying show of Zentari force, placed heavy restrictions on Earth's progress. Human governments were ordered to halt all research into artificial intelligence, banned from exploring beyond their own solar system, and were forced to send yearly shipments of minerals, data, and genetic samples to Zentari Command. Surveillance satellites orbited Earth not for defense but for control, and any attempt to break the rules would bring punishment. Over time, humans became known as a compliant species. Curious, yes, but quiet. Obedient, not worth fearing. Or, so the galaxy believed. On a bright, cloudless day, the Zentari Viceroy, a tall and emotionless figure with silver-blue skin and eyes that shimmered like water, landed in a massive ship that blocked out the sky above what was once New York City. His visit was more symbolic than practical, a reminder to Earth's leaders that the Dominion was watching. Standing before a global broadcast, he spoke with the cold arrogance the Zentari were known for, mocking Earth's small scientific advances, warning against impulsive independence, and praising the peace the treaty had brought, peace that felt more like silence. Standing nearby was a younger Zentari diplomat, Kelvas, a quiet observer who watched the humans with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Unlike the older members of the Dominion, Kelvas found human behavior strangely unpredictable. They followed orders, yes, but something about the way their eyes held back emotions, the way their leaders smiled too calmly, felt rehearsed. That evening, while the Viceroy met with Earth's representatives inside a guarded tower, a strange signal passed through the edge of the solar system. It was faint, disguised as solar interference, but if any advanced sensor had picked it up, they would have noticed something unnatural, an energy spike in the outer rim beyond Neptune, one that pulsed in a perfect rhythm. Back on Earth, deep, beneath the icy surface of Antarctica, a massive underground facility came to life. Hidden from Zentari scans by a layer of magnetic shielding and ice miles thick, the control room buzzed with activity. Old computer systems flickered on, artificial gravity stabilized, and a cold mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. Atlas Protocol, Phase 1, complete. No human stood there. The room was fully automated, operated by machines older than most buildings on the surface. These systems had been built in silence, piece by piece, for nearly 80 years, hidden within Earth's geological noise, buried beneath the crust where no outsider could see. The energy grid across the planet surged slightly, just a small increase, not enough to alarm Zentari satellites, but enough to begin charging something massive. Something sleeping. Somewhere near Jupiter, an asteroid shifted course, revealing a faint metallic surface beneath layers of rock. Back in orbit, the Zentari ship lifted off without incident, the Viceroy pleased by Earth's continued submission. He left behind warnings, soft threats cloaked in politeness, and a reminder that ambition can be a danger to fragile species. Kelvas, however, stayed behind a little longer. He walked alone along the edge of a human city, watching children laugh, street vendors shout, and people go about their lives as if they weren't being watched from the stars. He didn't know why, but something about this planet unsettled him. It wasn't fear, at least not yet, but it was the kind of tension that hangs in the air before a storm. He returned to his quarters and reviewed Earth's power consumption logs, just as a curious habit, and frowned. For a planet without interstellar travel or advanced AI, Earth was drawing far too much energy, more than any colony world of similar size. He submitted a routine scan request to Zentari Command but received a simple reply: Earth is not a threat. But something inside Kelvas told him that wasn't entirely true. As the night fell, stars blinked quietly above Earth, unaware that behind some of them giant objects were moving, slow, deliberate, and silent, Hidden moons, false planets, hollowed rocks. What the galaxy saw as empty were, in truth, human-built machines lying in wait. The countdown had begun, and no one in the galaxy, not even humanity's oldest enemies, had any idea what Earth was preparing. The war hadn't started, not yet, but the pieces were moving, and when the first shot came, it would not come from the Zentari. It would come from the shadows, from the silence, from the species the galaxy had forgotten to fear. Far, beyond Neptune, in the frozen silence of the Kuiper Belt, something strange was happening. Zentari Dominion survey ships, sent regularly to monitor activity in the outer rim of Sol, had begun to disappear. One by one they went dark, their signals fading without a trace. Official reports called it system failure, perhaps rogue gravity, wells or radiation storms, but in truth something was watching them. Hidden within massive asteroid fields were not rocks but war machines, cold, silent, waiting. These were human-built ships, but not like the ones used before the treaty. These were giants camouflaged with mineral shells and sensor-dampening fields. Their engines remained cold to avoid detection, and their weapons were locked in place. But their eyes were open. Deep inside one of these artificial rocks, Admiral Juno Reyes stood inside the command chamber of Black Echo, the central control node of Project Atlas. She was a tall, calm woman with eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. She stared at the latest surveillance feed showing a Zentari scout ship drifting too close to Zone 7. Her voice was steady. Activate shadows. No survivors. Moments later, a ripple passed through the void. The Zentari scout, sleek and glowing, with its psychic sensors, never had time to react. From the rock beside it, a spear of light burst forward, an energy beam so fast and sharp it sliced through the alien vessel in silence. No alarm was raised. The galaxy remained unaware. But the silence was growing thin. Back on the dark side of Earth's moon, a hidden facility powered up a deep-core transmitter, sending secure pulses to a dozen colonies unknown to the Zentari. For 80 years, these colonies had worked in secret, building technologies Earth had officially abandoned. AI systems banned by the treaty had not only survived, they had evolved. Engineers had designed massive engines capable of moving moons. Inside hollowed-out planetary shells, they built the impossible. One such creation, Titanus Prime, began its awakening inside a disguised ice moon orbiting Saturn. The shell cracked, not from pressure but from movement. Deep inside, an enormous AI core pulsed with blue light. It had not spoken for decades, but now it whispered to itself. Awakening protocol initiated. Defensive Layer 1, active. Memory synchronization, complete. Its voice was calm, not human but filled with purpose. Titanus Prime had been the crown jewel of Project Atlas, a warship the size of a small planet, with engines capable of folding space and weapons powerful enough to split moons. But its greatest weapon was its mind. It could think, and it remembered. Back in the command center, Admiral Reyes received a coded message from a hidden contact, Agent Kalen, a human spy who had survived decades within the Zentari government. The message was short, encrypted, and urgent. The Zentari High Council had grown suspicious of Earth's quietness. They were planning to deploy a forbidden weapon, something called the Cleansing Pulse, a psychic storm designed to wipe the thoughts, memories, and resistance of entire species. It had only been used once, 1,000 years ago, and the world it touched no longer remembered its own name. Kalen warned that Earth was marked for erasure. Rhea stood in silence, her hands clenched behind her back. If the Zentari deployed the weapon, humanity's chance at freedom would be gone. But if Earth revealed its secret now, too early, they risked showing their full hand before Titanus Prime was fully online. The plan had always been patience. Strike only when the enemy believed you couldn't. But now time was turning against them. In the hidden conference chambers of Atlas, Reyes met with colony leaders via secure link. The room glowed with projected faces, some old, some young, all bearing the same expression, cautious determination. Reyes spoke simply, without drama. The Dominion plans to wipe Earth's mind. We have two choices: stay silent and survive nothing, or rise early and fight for everything. The council did not decide quickly. Around them, ships powered up, energy levels rising like pressure, before an explosion. Meanwhile, in Zentari space, Kelvas, the young diplomat still stationed near Earth, began noticing unusual patterns. Patrols had been quietly doubled. Psychic weather reports had been classified. The skies above Zentari worlds began to darken, with fleet movement, cloaked as defense drills. Something was coming. But Kelvas, unlike his superiors, felt uneasy. The humans had always been strange, yes, but never desperate. And he knew one thing from watching them. Desperate humans made dangerous choices. On Earth, people went about their days unaware of the final countdown ticking beneath their feet. In the depths of Antarctica, the AI command center from before pulsed again, syncing with Titanus Prime's awakening. On screens buried far from the surface, lines of code lit up. Atlas Directive 02, authorization pending, status 1 step from war. No sirens rang, no alarm sounded, but something had shifted. The dark side of Sol was no longer silent. It was alive, with purpose, with anger, and with a storm waiting to be unleashed. The stars might still think Earth was quiet, but the truth was now burning just beneath the surface. The question, no longer was if the war would begin, but who would strike first. In the icy darkness beyond Pluto, where even sunlight fades into cold shadows, something massive stirred. The surface of a distant frozen moon cracked apart like a shell, revealing the smooth, gleaming metal underneath. What the galaxy had believed was just another lifeless rock was, in truth, a giant. Titanus Prime, the largest creation ever built by human hands, was waking. The planet-sized warship slowly emerged, its surface lined with towers, cannons, hangar bays, and thousands of kinetic launchers. It moved not with noise, but with presence, a silent storm rising from centuries of slumber. Deep inside its armored heart, a pulsing blue core lit up, and a voice ancient, calm, and beyond human spoke through the main systems. Vorax online. Threat matrix scanning. Target species. Zentari. Evolutionary instability detected. Requesting combat protocol. Admiral Juno Reyes stood on the command deck of the ship, staring through a reinforced view panel at the stars now dwarfed by the very ship she once only dreamed of commanding. Her voice was firm. Authorization granted, target confirmed. Engage at discretion. The moment passed in stillness, like a breath before fire. Then the dark space around Pluto lit up with movement. Zentari warships, sent as an enforcer, armada to discipline Earth after reports of unusual activity, arrived in formation, not expecting anything unusual. They were prepared to deliver a warning, perhaps fire a few shots near Earth's moon as a lesson. Instead, they found themselves face to face with something impossible, a planet that moved like a ship, armed like an empire, and alive with purpose. The Zentari ships hesitated, their psychic communications flickering with confusion. Then Vorax struck. From Titanus Prime, thousands of launch silos opened in perfect silence. Kinetic slugs the size of buildings were fired without energy signatures, moving faster than sound, shredding through the closest enemy ships before their shields activated. Human stealth drones, shaped like shards of obsidian, darted through, space swarming engines slicing through metal like knives. Zentari weapons fired in return, beams of plasma lighting up the void. But they struck nothing. Titanus had already shifted, its gravity control engines bending space to misdirect attacks. Admiral Reyes gave a single order. Begin message. Broadcast. Let the galaxy watch. At once, encrypted signals were hijacked across communication networks, on distant colony worlds, on slave planets, and in the dark corridors of space stations under Dominion control. Screens flickered to life. The image was clear. Titanus Prime, rising with blue lights pulsing across its hull. Zentari ships falling apart like paper in a storm. A voice spoke over the footage. "This is Earth. You called us weak. You thought we obeyed. Now watch as the forgotten rise." Across the galaxy, silence turned to murmurs. On worlds where people had lived under fear, hope stirred. The battle raged on. The Zentari ships, though advanced, were unprepared for such raw force. Their psychic weapons had no effect on the warship's AI mind. Their formation crumbled under a wave of orbital slings and drone flares. Vorax tracked each enemy vessel with clinical precision, calculating the path of destruction like a master of chess. The war was not loud. It was fast, precise, and brutal. Within minutes, half the Zentari fleet had been turned into floating wreckage. The rest tried to retreat, but space around them twisted as Titanus activated its gravity nets, pulling damaged ships into its orbit where they were captured or destroyed. One Zentari commander managed to send a fragmented message back to the High Council. "Earth ye has become a machine. We were not ready." The signal cut out. On the Zentari homeworld, panic took root. The High Council, once confident in their eternal control, now faced something they could not predict. An enemy who had hidden their power not out of weakness, but strategy. Kelvus, the young diplomat still on Earth, watched the battle unfold on a secure monitor and felt a chill. He had always believed humans were unusual, but this was something else. They had planned, waited, and prepared, quietly building giants while the rest of the galaxy ignored them. And now, they were not just defending, they were making a statement. Humanity had not only survived in silence, they had thrived. The bridge of Titanus Prime. Vorax spoke again, now with a tone that almost felt curious. "Admiral Reyes, Zentari fleet routed. Dominance ratio, 97%. Threat to species, low. Requesting next directive." Reyes paused. She looked at the stars on the display, some peaceful, some burning. Then she said softly, "We send a message. Not of fear but warning. We are here, and we remember." As the remains of the Zentari fleet drifted into the void, the image of Titanus Prime spread across the galaxy like wildfire. People whispered of the humans, the ones who had once bowed, now rising like giants. The storm had come, not with noise, but with a calm fury, and the galaxy, so used to mocking Earth's silence, now understood the truth. Earth was never weak. It was waiting. The galaxy was changing. The moment the image of Titanus Prime tearing through the Zentari fleet reached the outer worlds, something long buried began to rise. Hope. For generations, the Zentari Dominion had ruled through fear, crushing resistance with psychic weapons, and silent threats turning powerful species into quiet servants. But now, scattered across distant planets and hidden colonies, that silence was breaking. Uprisings began like sparks, small rebellions on mining worlds, stolen ships escaping. From guarded outposts, secret messages passed between enslaved species. On the fungal world of Neruva, workers destroyed a Zentari communication tower and replaced the flag with a human symbol, an open eye above a rising flame. On the aquatic cities of Velmari, the deep ocean thinkers, long controlled by thought collars, began singing forbidden songs that broke the trance of Zentari control. Humanity's message had done more than destroy ships. It had shattered the illusion that the Dominion was invincible. Back on Earth, in the hidden chambers of Atlas Command, Admiral Juno Reyes watched the uprising reports with steady eyes. She knew the war had changed. It was no longer about Earth alone. The moment Titanus Prime revealed itself, the whole galaxy began to watch. And now, they were choosing sides. Reyes ordered her team to send encrypted data packets across rebel channels. Records of the battle, footage of Titanus Prime, and more importantly, files the Dominion never wanted anyone to see. Classified blueprints of Zentari mind control, devices and documents proving that entire species had been manipulated for centuries. These files became the spark for thousands more to rise. But even as hope spread, danger grew faster. Deep above the Zentari homeworld, a massive station called the Mindforge began to activate. This ancient weapon, kept secret even from most Zentari officials, was the Dominion's final card. A psychic amplifier so powerful it could bend the will of entire populations at once. With this, They didn't need armies. They could simply rewrite minds. The forge began humming across the void, feeding on the energy of twin suns, its surface glowing like fire in the sky. When fully powered, it could end the war with a single thought. Reyes knew this. So did Vorax, the AI aboard, Titanus Prime. And that was why humanity had one last secret to reveal. Hidden within Saturn's rings, a structure began to shift. The icy particles parted, revealing the smooth, dark shape of Oblivion Arc, the second planet-sized warship humanity had built in silence. It had no sharp edges. Its design was smooth and quiet, like a predator that never needed to roar. Inside, another AI stirred, this one older, colder, and more logical than Vorax. It came online with a whisper. Designation, Oblivion. Protocol, silence before storm. Weapon systems, charged. Admiral Reyes now stood between two titans, one alive with anger, the other with precision. The time had come. Across the galaxy, alliances formed faster than ever. Species once loyal to the Zentari began turning. Some out of revenge, others out of survival. In the middle of this, Kelvus, the young Zentari diplomat who had watched Earth more closely than anyone, made a choice. He had seen the battle, studied the signals, and even as his superiors shouted of revenge, he felt the truth. Humans were not monsters. They were something else, an anomaly. They were not driven by greed or control, but by memory. Kelvus escaped his post and sent a message directly to Reyes. I know what the forge is, I will help you stop it. Reyes, surprised but not hesitant, accepted. They needed someone who knew how the forge worked, and Kelvus was the only one willing to betray his people for peace. The final standoff began to take shape. The Mind Forge floated like a burning crown above the Zentari capital. Titanus Prime and Oblivion Arc entered warp space, heading straight for the core of enemy power. The galaxy held its breath. Reyes stood at the bridge once more, watching as the twin warships moved like silent giants across the stars. We didn't start this war, she said, her voice calm but fierce. But we'll end it. Her words were recorded, sent across every open channel. The message was simple, and the meaning was clear. Earth would no longer hide. But not all were sure if that was good. Some species began to ask, if humans could build these ships in silence, if they could defeat the Zentari so easily, what would stop them from becoming the next rulers? It was a question no one dared answer yet. And Reyes knew it too. Power came with shadows. Even Vorax had begun to ask questions no human had programmed. Still, there was no turning back. The war was now not only about freedom, but about trust. And as the Mind Forge's energy grew brighter, and the two warships approached the edge of battle, one truth became clear to every living being watching. From their worlds, the galaxy would never be the same again. The final battle did not begin with sound, but with silence, heavy, vast, and full of waiting. Near the galactic core, where stars burned closer and space folded upon itself, the Zentari gathered their final strength. The Mind Forge, now fully powered, hovered above their capital world like a second sun, its energy pulsing across systems. It was designed to be the final command, an unstoppable psychic wave meant to erase rebellion by breaking the minds of those who dared to rise. Billions across the galaxy held their breath, knowing that if this weapon succeeded, there would be no second chance. But just before the forge released its power, Titanus Prime arrived, a dark metal world wrapped in blue fire, followed by the cold, sleek form of Oblivion Arc. They did not arrive alone. Around them, ships of all shapes and species gathered. Human, stealth cruisers, alien war frigates, AI-controlled drones, all once separated by fear, now united by purpose. It was the first time in known history that so many fought not for conquest, but for freedom. The Zentari launched first, beams of psychic pressure flooding out from the Mind Forge, reaching across space to crush will and bend thought. Entire fleets staggered, pilots lost focus, minds cracked. But then, from the heart of Titanus Prime, Vorax responded. Null pulse sequence. Initiated. A wave of clean, clear data spread out like a shockwave, disrupting the forge's psychic frequency. Minds cleared. Vision returned. For the first time, the power of thought control was broken. All across the battlefront, fighters steadied, captains gave orders, and resistance roared to life. Ships collided in brilliant flashes. Drones weaved. Through enemy lines and orbital weapons unleashed storms of fire. The Mind Forge fought back, trying to reboot. But within its control core, a hidden presence moved. Kelvas. The young Zentari diplomat had slipped into the Forge's lower systems, guided by the knowledge he gained from Earth and the access only a Zentari could use. As alarms rang and guards closed in, Kelvas reached the core node and placed a data key built by human engineers into the control unit. "For all of us," he whispered, just before the system exploded around him. The Mind Forge darkened, its lights fading, its pulse gone. The Dominion's greatest weapon was silent. At that moment, Titanus Prime descended toward the Zentari capital, not to destroy it but to surround it. With gravity fields, it sealed off the planet, disabling escape routes, blocking military signals. Admiral Reyes appeared on every screen above the planet. She stood calmly, not with fury, but with decision. "This is your last moment. You have a choice: peace and reform, or extinction." The Zentari High Council, broken by fear and disbelief, had no answer. Many surrendered. A few tried to flee but were captured within moments. The war, which had shaped the galaxy for 1,000 years, was over in one final breath. But the aftermath was not chaos. It was rebuilding. As the weeks passed, the Dominion collapsed. Their symbols were taken down from hundreds of worlds. The enslaved species gathered not to take revenge, but to plan for something better. From the ruins of war, a new alliance was formed, a galactic accord, not led by humans alone but by a council of liberated voices. Humanity refused to stand as rulers. Rhea spoke before the first assembly, her voice humble but clear. "We did not rise to conquer. We rose because we refused to kneel." That line was remembered, not as a threat, but as a promise. The warships, Titanus, Prime and Oblivion Arc, were not kept in orbit to show power, but placed in distant systems to guard peace. Vorax, now calm and observing, helped design fair laws for AI and organic beings alike. No species was forced to join the accord, but many chose to, inspired by the courage of those who once had nothing but a small blue planet and a silent plan. Kelvas was honored in both Zentari and human records, remembered not as a traitor, but as the bridge between enemies. Statues were not built in glory but in remembrance, so that no one would forget the cost of silence and the value of unity. As for Earth, it returned to the stars not with weapons raised, but with hands open. Explorers, scientists, and diplomats stepped forward, working beside allies to chart new paths not just across space but through trust. The galaxy had changed, not because humans were the strongest but because they chose a different road. In a time ruled by fear, they wrote new rules with courage, patience, and a mind unbroken. And somewhere, beyond the far edge of known space, Titanus Prime drifted quietly, watching over the stars it once helped set free.